Hey guys, this is King Orange here, back again for another video. Before I start the actual video, I want to say as a small disclaimer before the video gets started, um, my recording device went through a major technical screw up during the process of this video, and as a result I've had to re-record the already recorded video, and as such the quality is really gonna take a hit. The only option was either to do that or to restart the process all over again, but that would take me almost 2 hours to do on its own, and I'd rather spend that time working on my next video, which is going to be one's going to be Halo Infinite, another's going to be my road to Halo Infinite, which is going to be me doing a proper review of every Halo game leading up to Halo Infinite, and I do mean every. Okay, with the exception of Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike, those are exceptions, but every mainline Halo game will be getting a review. So, yeah. With that in mind, and also the content I need to cover with Call of Duty Modern Warfare and that sort of stuff, all those things combined, I would rather move on to those videos than having to restart this. So, I do apologize for the quality issue, but this was sort of the best of bad options that I have. So I hope you can enjoy the video anyways, even if the audio quality in particular suffers. But either way, I hope you can enjoy it. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace. What's going on, guys? This is King Orange here, back again for another video. And here I am making a response video to this wonderful YouTube video by Extra Credits called Stop Normalizing Nazis. Dang, this sounds like it's gonna be a very objective point. You know, there's absolutely no way this could go wrong. So yeah, guys, let's just skip right on to the video and see what is going on.
There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet there it is. And it's treated no differently than playing a British soldier.
Except that it is treated different. There's multiple cosmetic, objective, and, you know, also background behind these factions, but whatever.
This is bad on so many levels. No one should ever have a random chance of fighting for the Nazis. And we should never express that there's no meaningful difference between Nazis and Allied soldiers, or that they're functionally interchangeable. And before anyone equivocates and says not all German soldiers in World War II were Nazis, if they were wearing the swastika and are functioning as an arm of the Nazi government, then unless the game goes out of its way to tell you specifically that your particular character is not a Nazi, then they're a Nazi.
Yeah, totally. Unless you can prove that that person is not a Nazi, they are by definition a Nazi. The same way that if someone's not proven to be a criminal, unless you can downright go on and say they're not a criminal, then guess what? They're a criminal. This is just like, I can tell already this is just going to be a lot of overthinking nonsense, but alright, let's keep on going.
That multiplayer shooter, when it switched you to the German side, did it go out of its way to tell you that the person you're playing was pressed into service under threat of their life? Yeah, that's a big old no. Oh, and on a similar note, let's please stop forcing people to play as terrorists as well. There you are, playing your modern shooter, and all of a sudden you're a terrorist. You didn't ask for this, you didn't choose this, and yet second verse, same as the first, there it is. I mean, that's literally the name of your side in the game. We can do better than this. Even if you put aside all of the people who have had traumatic experiences with these groups, who have lost loved ones to terrorists, or who have had generations of their families wiped out by Nazis, no one should have to put on the costume of an ideology they find abhorrent without actually opting into it in your game.
Okay, where do I start? Alright, first off, you are really overthinking this with the way of, oh, we should overly consider the people that die upon these things. Fictional media portrays these groups specifically because they've happened in real life. What, you think we just you think that these like games and all that go like, oh yeah, we definitely know that Nazis aren't offensive. Why do you think 90% of games are under the perspective of those taking the Nazi regime down? And you're really overthinking this of, oh, playing as a character faction in a video game is, inherently evil and it's going to make you like basically have the world hate you. And on top of this, saying, oh, you shouldn't be having this happen if you're not choosing it. Well, you are choosing it by buying the game. When, you're buying a World War II game, I think you kind of know what you're getting into when you buy a World War II game. That's like, literally, when you're buying a World War II multiplayer oriented game, you know one of the opposing factions is going to be the Germans, or as you like to call them, the Nazis. Even though game franchises nowadays specifically try to avoid that word because of, obvious reasons. But even so, yeah, they're still Nazis. They're still all evil and stuff. Like, yeah, totally. But, alright, let's just go on.
And by making people do so, we get them to stop thinking about it, to stop thinking of the meaning behind these things.
Oh my gosh. Do you really think that by playing a Nazi in a fictional video game, yes, it's based on real events and all that sort of stuff, but guess what? You're playing fictional. You are playing as a character that's not real, and a conflict that, while based on real events, isn't actually real based on its outcome and the circumstances that are built up. And you think that playing this fictional reality called a video game, where one of the two factions is a Nazi and occasionally you're going to have to play as a Nazi, makes you all of a sudden desensitized to the actual inherent evils and atrocities that they committed. Are you completely ignorant of what history class teaches you?
Normalize them. We make them just window dressing for entertainment. Those uniforms, those symbols, become things that no longer inherently revolt us. They reduce our visceral reaction to seeing the embodiment of these ideologies. Now, does this make us totally ignore the history that comes with them? No. But for some people,
well, thank you. At least you actually kind of proved me a little bit over edge. But still not by much.
It moves them from the territory of revolting to just edgy.
Why would we revolt against a regime that no longer exists? Gosh, the Nazi regime doesn't exist anymore, and even modern National Socialist movements, while present, are not in any way popularized, nor even that, relevant within modern society and its issues. And yet you treat this like, oh, this converts people from, oh, we have to absolutely kill every Nazi ever, to just going, I don't like them. I mean, when we live in a society where, that regime doesn't really exist anymore, I don't think that animosity really is needed. Why not worry about the modern enemies that we have to deal with rather than continuously trying to bash an enemy that's been destroyed years and years and years ago? Not saying we should forget the past, but I'm just saying we also got to move on from it.
It makes drawing a swastika on something change from unthinkable to just dangerous. It means you might.
Drawing a swastika on something from unthinkable to dangerous. Again, you're really putting this in an over-exaggerated manner. And you're treating this like this whole normalization, as you call it, of Nazis. Or the more accurate term would just be people not having such animosity to them anymore. It's not stemmed from video games. Okay, now can you say they play a factor? Maybe. And yeah, I dare say maybe they'd have a little bit of a factor, but you're acting like this is a direct causality when it's not. The reason why this is the case is the presence of time. The more eras go by, the less you're going to overly think about something that's happened over a century ago versus, say, back in the day where it was only 20 years ago. You see what I'm saying? That's like saying we should expect people 70 years from now to think of 9/11 the same way we think of it right now, when simply put, they're not going to.
Might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave, and if you don't,
The Iron Cross is not even a Nazi logo. Okay, this was stemmed before the Nazi regime. This cross was actually an honorary medal given across multiple regimes, not just the Germans, but between Germans, Prussians, Russians, Romanians, and Italians. Well, maybe not Italians. Like I said, I'm not gray on its history, but I know that it stemmed even before the swastika. And I've known it's been part of German culture well before the Nazi regime. Alright? If you want to say that the whole swastika one put in front of the Iron Cross, the modified version that the Nazis made after their rise in 1933, if you want to say, oh, that's a representation of Nazi imagery, well, it has the swastika, so go right ahead. But again, you're placing this as like, oh, everything prideful about Germans is like automatically Nazis. Not true.
leave. You might start reading and buying into hateful ideas there.
Oh, so not only now is it that people are just desensitized, but now they think by looking up stuff related to the Nazis, or just, looking at simple things related to them, that, oh, you're at the risk of becoming a Nazi and buying into their hateful ideas. Oh no, we better stop teaching World War II in schools because we don't want our kids to become Nazis. We don't want people to grow up to become Nazis because we teach it in a class because it's important to know the history, but screw that. We don't want people to become Nazis.
It seems like such a small and simple thing, but it's things like this that erode our safeguards against dangers we sacrifice so much to fight. By the time you've played 100 hours of being a Nazi, their voice stabs become memes and in-jokes with your friends.
That happens anyways. That's part of dark humor, is to take something that's otherwise a serious situation and make a joke out of it for the sake of desensitizing the whole situation. Whether you think it's good or bad, it's not a direct result of playing video games about it. It's a result of the time span that occurs between an event in the present time, as well as the culture that people grow up in, which most cultures are defined within people well before they pick up their first controller. Just saying.
By the 1,000th time you respawned as a terrorist, you're either celebrating them or making fun of them, neither of which helps the global crisis we have that takes thousands of lives every year. So what do? That's easy. Don't make them morally equivalent.
They're not morally equivalent. Again, you're thinking the mentality that, oh, because a Nazi is playable in a game, that you should automatically put them in equivalency. They're not. Most video games have it where, they have their own unique set of weapons, vehicles, and, even aesthetic that people find more appealing in a sense between the Allies and the Axis. That's the main reason sides are chosen in video games when the chosen option is allowed. And I know you're about to get to this whole picking teams or whatever, so I won't go overboard about it here. But the whole thing is people don't find these two morally equivalent. In fact, even gameplay-wise, most games have it where they're quite different from each other. Just saying.
Don't make there be no in-game moral difference between your Nazis and your allies, between your terrorists and your counter-terrorist squads. Frame PvP as a training exercise, or simply take one of your non-odious sides and recolor them so that it's red versus blue, rather than Axis versus allies. A good
So your solution to this apparent problem is to completely get rid of the factions that make up a modern or World War II game. Oh yeah, we'll just make it a training exercise. Really? There's ways to incorporate moral equivalency. If anything, that would make it more morally equivalent. If you know that red team's supposed to represent allies or blue team's supposed to represent Axis or vice versa, if you can just tell by like the armor and that sort of thing, wouldn't getting rid of the things that define them as a faction make them even more morally equivalent to their counterpart? But no, man, apparently everything's got to be this weird cookie dough, whatever.
Good example of a game that does this is Rainbow Six Siege. All of your bomb diffusion and hostage rescue multiplayer with no normalizing terrorists. In fact, by having all of the characters as counter-terrorists training for a possible threat, it highlights how real and present of a threat that is. And if you decide that you
Yeah, guys, I bet people play Rainbow Six Siege because they want to partake in a training exercise of counterterrorism, and that by playing the game, they're going to be further aware of the terrorist threat that exists within the world. Oh, please, are you freaking kidding me? People play Rainbow Six Siege because it's a fun tactical multiplayer experience full with chaos and, well, frankly put, again, a lot of tactical gameplay. This is things that people like out of that game, right? That's the main reason most people tell me they like Rainbow Six Siege. Out of everyone I've asked, not a single one has told me that they like the game because of the aesthetic that makes everyone think, oh yeah, everyone's counter-terrorists, and oh, it makes me so aware of the terrorist threat. Are you freaking kidding me? Yeah, no. I'm sorry. That your argument's just BS. If you have any semblance of what the Rainbow Six Siege community is like. But you probably don't, because you've probably never played a single video game in your life. Or correction, probably haven't ever played a single multiplayer game in your life. There, I'll be a little fair for you.
need to have both sides be playable, don't make them interchangeable. Don't have players randomly spawn in as one or the other. Allow players to choose which side they're on. Now, of course,
Well, the best of video games actually do have it where you can choose teams. Now, this is the part I will actually agree with you, and I'll give you a few brownie points. But this is probably the only one, so don't blink. Yeah, extra credits. Yeah, I completely agree with the notion that when it doesn't disrupt the server or the overall balance of the teams, that yes, having the option to choose one faction or the other is good. Battlefield 1 did this, Call of Duty World at War did this, I believe. At least at the beginning. I don't think it does anymore, but whatever. But a good game that does this, as an example, is Battlefield 1. A game where before you enter the server, you can change teams both before and during the match if you really wanted to, as long as the teams would be remained balanced and as long as there was a slot available. And I actually liked this. It was actually a really good feature, and it was something I was very upset that Battlefield 5, cough cough, DICE, took down. DICE, please just bring it back into Battlefield 5, especially once when the Americans and the Japanese get added in. Please. Please. Please! I digress.
this has all sorts of in-game problems, such as creating shorter wait times for fascists. But you know what? Those wait times could be artificially extended if it meant players had an active choice in what teams they would represent. If you're saying we need people playing Nazis in our games.
Okay, this is just proof you haven't played a single video game multiplayer in your life. This is just proof of it. What company in their right mind is going to purposely increase the time of a search to get the match going over your whole idea of, oh, it should be a committed decision for people to play as the German or Nazi factions or the fascists or whatever you want to say. Are you freaking kidding me? Do you not understand the logic of a multiplayer game? The logic of a multiplayer game is to get you in a match as fast as possible to have as much enjoyment as possible. You can't get that if literally you're having an artificial wait time just for the sake of appealing to your little higher sense of morality. With quotations. Also, on top of that, it sounds like the developers are literally twisting your arm and saying you have to play as a Nazi in general. No one's saying that. You could easily not buy the game if you don't want to do that. Or at the very least, if you don't want to play as a Nazi because your morality won't allow it, then quit out of the match and re-queue as an ally. At some point, especially in games like Battlefield 5, where there's only 2 factions in the game, at some point, you're going to be a British dude. Okay? At some point, that's going to happen. So, yeah, if your whole higher sense of morality won't allow that, then, there's a simple thing called quitting and rejoining a match, or just not buying that game, or just staying to the single player. But no, everything has to cater to your higher sense of morality. You can't just let gamers have fun with their multiplayer experience. I get it.
And if you're going to say, but we need it for historical reasons, then your game better actually be historical. You can't really just hide behind the fact you called your desert map El Alamein and say, but it's historical. If that were the case, you need your PvP to at least represent real historical events and be a realistic take on those battles. Once you make both sides balanced, it's also no longer historical. And you can't really say that you need Nazis anymore for historical accuracy. Oh, and once you let players get cool weapons that weren't actually at that particular battleground, it's also no longer historically accurate. And you can't declare that your game will suffer if you don't put players in the jackboots of the Third Reich. And once your map is something carefully designed to have good gameplay by a team in a room in San Francisco or LA, and it's not a faithful reconstruction of the actual places the historical events occurred in, you can no longer say we need to have players take up arms in service of terror or hate.
That is according to you. The definition of what a gamer wants out of quote-unquote historical accuracy, which really just needs to be redefined as historical authenticity, this is the same kind of argument BS I've had to deal with Battlefield 5, where whenever I've argued against the idea of including female and other minorities within the game, at least especially with the Axis side, but the whole thing is including female customization options within the game. The biggest thing I've always had to deal with in argument is going, oh, it's never historically accurate. That, oh, the whole thing is it's like, oh, if you die, you can respawn. It's not like in actual war where if you die, they bring up this BS argument where it's like, oh, if it was historically accurate, the minute you die, your TV should shut off, and then someone should knock on your door, barge in, and then end up shooting you in the head. Boom. There you go. Historically accurate. Duh. And it's like, you're really, really trying to over-exaggerate this. No. A game doesn't have to be historically accurate as you would define it to be fun. But there is a little thing called suspension of disbelief. And needless to say, no one's going to have suspension of disbelief if not even the factions of the freaking conflict are involved within the conflict. There's a certain suspension of disbelief, alright? And it's a lot more easy to believe having, say, a Tiger tank appear in a match in 1940, even though the Tiger wasn't developed in 1942 till then. It's a lot more believable to see a Tiger in 1940 than it is to see a whole server of female combatants, or in your case, to see a bunch of Brits wearing red outfits and the Germans wearing blue outfits, with no logical reason as of why. But, alright, I'll let you finish your thing. Maybe you can salvage some redemption. Probably not, though.
And look, we're not saying we can't have games about World War II or about terrorism. We're not even saying we should...
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's great. That's great. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy about that. I'm glad I have your permission. Oh my gosh, I was scared that no more World War II or terrorism games would ever get made because you would not give the permission for people to make them. Oh no, that's so... I'm so relieved.
shouldn't make games where you play as a Nazi or a terrorist. But what we are saying is that the fact that you're playing as a Nazi or a terrorist in a game has to mean something. And
According to you, your definition of it meaning something could be different from another person meaning something. For most gamers, the difference is the weapons, the aesthetic, the tanks, the aircraft, the whole objectives, if it's an objective-based game. Because most of the times it is based on an actual historical scenario, even if it doesn't play out the same way, and even if, obviously sacrifices are going to be made, because it's a video game. Your definition is not the same as everyone else's, and clearly you were in the minority on this, when guess what? These historical and modern day shooters still get played.
And it can't just be a skin. It can't be something that a game randomly drops you into.
According to you, most people aren't bothered, though. Okay, that's your opinion according to you, but most people aren't bothered by it. Yet you're putting yourself here now going all high and mighty about it. Oh, it can't do it. Yes it can. It's been doing it. And it's still been successful. And guess what? I haven't seen any Nazis rising up from the grave yet. I haven't been seeing any countries being infested with their ideals. I haven't seen terrorism increase. In fact, it's actually decreased these past few years. So yeah, definitely this direct causality, guys.
And really, if we are saying anything in this episode, it's this. Games can do better. And in this particular case, it's not even that hard to do better. And it's no more costly to do better. All it requires...
Yes, it is costly to do, in your definition, better. When a game is marketed to be a World War II video game, and your solution is to either have red versus blue teams within a World War II video game, or to have it where you would purposely queue up longer times just for players that play as the Axis, or the Nazis, or whatever you want to call them, just as punishment for them doing that choice, which in turn punishes the people that choose the allies as well, because they still need to wait for their opponent team before starting the match. So yes, it is consequential to their money budget, and it's not worth it when it doesn't gain them anything. And it doesn't even gain anything with its community either. It benefits no one other than your little higher sense of morality.
Is that we in the game industry be cognizant of the world around us and what these symbols we're drawing on mean. That we think as we're building, not just about the game we're working on, but about the world as a whole. If we can do that, we can take a big step forward for the industry. We can stop helping to normalize Nazis.
Okay, well, glad I went through that nonsense. Again, talking to extra credits here, they are making no sense. Like, really. It's clear to me that it's like they haven't played a single multiplayer game in their life. That they are thinking that artificial, longer matchmaking times and, purposely getting rid of the aesthetics that people buy a video game for is somehow the key to higher morality and stopping Nazis and terrorism, even though Nazis are dead and terrorism has been a threat we've battled long before this issue and probably long after, and we're actually at a point where terrorism's lower than ever. Well, not than ever, but lower since last decade. Just saying. But it's really? Really? You're gonna say, like, oh, this is all, like, great stuff, this is all, like, great stuff we should do, even though it benefits no one, it's financially damaging, and again, it appeals to no one except your little higher sense of morality, which you can't even statistically back up. I'm sorry, but no. Alright, the only point I'll agree with you on is, oh, people should be able to choose their teams and stuff with it. But guess what? The best of video games already have that. And that's a game option feature that should be there for gameplay purposes, not for the sake of your morality. But that being said, I don't know, I'll give you credit, your artwork's good. Yep, that's it. That's the only credit I can give you. Alright, well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like this video up, subscribe, and until then, I'll see you in the next video, guys. This is King Orange, and I am signing off. Peace.